Story 1. Panera changed the entire menu, removing healthy options and replacing them with cheap, sugary items. The menu items are also smaller, and all prices have been increased. Story 2. John Deere closed the majority of their decades-old family-owned franchises that were the mainstay of communities. Now, customers have to travel long distances to obtain parts or service. They offer online shopping, but not for large parts. The quality of the product has declined, and the once reliable product is no longer dependable. They continue to lay off employees, close factories, and move operations to Mexico. Story 3. Chipotle. I made an order through the app for pickup. A bowl for me and a salad for my mother. I paid for double meat and guacamole. I counted 5 pieces of meat, and the guacamole serving was about a tablespoon. The whole container was half filled. My mother's was also half filled. $30 for both. I complained with pictures and got no response. Out of principle, I will never eat there again and tell everyone I can to either. Story 4. Instagram is becoming outdated with all the influencer content. I don't even follow them, yet I still see all their posts. Story 5. Realizing that, pound for pound, the steak and lobster I made myself for dinner cost less than the burgers and fries I had for lunch. Story 6. The Seiko Repair Center told me that a defect I clearly see is not a defect because they claim to only see it with a magnifying glass. They confirm it is there, but I am considered wrong for noticing it. Story 7. Craftsman brand hand tools. When I was younger, they had an excellent return policy. If you brought in a broken hand tool for any reason, they would replace it, no questions asked. You did not even need a receipt. They had confidence in their product and stood behind it. Even if the tool broke due to your own misuse, they supported you. Then the accountants and executives focused on the bottom line. They started cutting back on quality, then required proof of purchase, and eventually eliminated that policy altogether. Story 8. I used to love the convenience and reliability of Amazon's products. Now, many of the products come from Chinese third-party companies with random names, selling the cheapest and lowest quality goods imaginable. When my Amazon Prime subscription is about to renew in October, I will cancel it. I no longer trust the reliability of anything they sell. There is no quality control. Story 9. Electrical issues with my Subaru. I loved Subarus. Growing up we had them, and I had 2 as an adult. My last Subaru had a strange electrical problem where it would just turn off for no reason. The dealership could not or would not figure it out despite having the car for 2 weeks to investigate. They said they couldn't find anything wrong with it except it randomly turning off and said I could drive it off the lot without worry. I was shocked that I didn't want to keep a car that mysteriously turned off. Story 10. I was a Playboy subscriber up to the Jessica Alba cover scandal. Things had been on a downward trajectory already, but that was the final straw. Story 11. Not that I used them much, but Uber Eats. I used it twice in June because I had a $30 voucher and the food was free. In July, a phantom order was placed for a restaurant I have never heard of. I saw the "Your food is being prepared" notification and immediately canceled the $35 order, but since the kitchen had already started the order, I was charged $27 after canceling. I immediately contacted Uber to ask for a refund, and they absolutely refused. I ended up disputing it with my credit card company, and they are still reviewing it. I will never use anything Uber again unless I literally have no other option. Story 12. Starbucks union busting. I was already not a fan of the changes they made to their rewards program, but this was the final straw. Story 13. Trader Joe's is trying to dismantle the National Labor Relations Board. Amazon and Space Exploration Technologies Corporation are also involved, but I do not use those. Story 14. Sears ordered a range, and it arrived smashed, so I did not accept delivery. Took a month to get the refund. Meanwhile, I ordered another range that was also damaged. The only customer service representative who was able to help me also tricked me into providing my credit card number. As a result, I had $1,800 in charges from Indonesia and had to cancel my card. I complained, and they said it was not possible for their customer service staff to access my credit card number. When the situation was resolved 2 months later, They had accidentally refunded me for an extra range, so I came out ahead. I considered calling to correct it, but I did not want to give them my new credit card number. Story 15. Subway and their current prices. They were never amazing sandwiches. It was just a big sandwich that was pretty okay, but not at 11 to 13 pounds for a footlong. That is too much for an average quality large sandwich. Story 16. Southwest. I got stuck in their holiday travel nightmare. They promised to pay for my tickets with another airline. They never did, despite filing a claim twice. There is nothing that drives me crazier than that kind of lying. Story 17. Starbucks is unaffordable now. They raised the prices so much that I drive by it and think I used to love it, but now I despise it. Story 18. I was the chief operating officer and helped my chief executive officer get the Paycheck Protection Program loans for COVID-19. He promised me it was for payroll so I could protect my employees' income. He immediately cut all their hours and asked me, "Help me make this legal." I told him to leave me alone. I went absolutely ballistic on him. I hope the Internal Revenue Service investigates him. Story 19. People outside of Canada may not know this, but Loblaws grocery stores used to be my main grocery store. When the pandemic hit, they took total advantage of their customers. They increased prices significantly while also shrinking product sizes. It was so bad, I'm pretty sure the chief executive officer was questioned by the government in a public session. I have not bought an item from them in years at this point. There is a whole subreddit based around boycotting them. Absolute scumbags. Story 20. Taco Bell had been declining for some time, but dropping the grilled stuffed burrito was the last straw. Wendy's had a lot of discussion about dynamic pricing. Story 21. McDonald's. I was treated unfairly as a worker in 1986. It was not unique as they were doing it to everyone. I have not returned since. I just cannot. Story 22. $15.20 for a dry burger and cold fries at McDonald's. Story 23. Sticker Mule's strange statement. As a Trump supporter, I am oppressed every day. From the chief executive officer was followed by revealing personal information of commenters who are not part of the Make America Great Again movement on social media. I could have gone my whole life in blissful ignorance, but now they are like the Thanksgiving uncle of stickers I used to love. Story 24. I wouldn't necessarily say I like the company, but it's a significant issue that made me stop considering them for anything ever again. Bob's Discount Furniture. I expected a you get what you pay for kind of experience, but what we saw in store was fine and reasonably priced. The issue is they sold us the extended warranty called Goof Proof. We bought it because we had a toddler at the time. Accidents happen. One of the metal bars that helps operate the powered leg rest snapped, and I called the Goof Proof number. They denied my claim, saying it was normal use or normal wear and tear. I fought hard but couldn't get anywhere. They would only cover accidents, and I tried to argue a couple of different accidental scenarios that might have caused the bar to break. I don't know what really broke it, though. They literally told me the only scenario they'd cover was if I had tripped and fell into my couch. Multiple people said the same thing, but they already had my denied claim on record and wouldn't work with me. I eventually gave up on the warranty and tried getting Bob's to at least replace the part. I would have even paid for it. But they told me parts weren't available for the couch anymore. It was maybe 2 to 3 years old. I was past the manufacturer warranty, and the company kept blowing me off. I eventually worked through my state consumer protection office to talk to someone in corporate, who offered me a $200 refund. That's it. I couldn't fix the couch, and it wouldn't be enough to replace it. I ended up hiring a fabricator to make the broken part with that $200. Story 25. Netflix. Ending good shows too early. Cuties. Ending password sharing. Reducing bandwidth speeds. Increasing prices. Adding advertising. Story 26. I will run out of message space if I write why I have boycotted Nestlé's products. Story 27. Volkswagen is my 5th vehicle. I experienced electrical problems at 30,000 miles, but they dismissed my concerns and did not take them seriously. This will be my last Volkswagen. Story 28. Hobby Lobby fought all the way to the Supreme Court to avoid having to provide health insurance that includes birth control for their employees, because they are a Christian business. I had already stopped going there when the controversy started. Story 29. I was a big Apple fan. They make great machines that last a lifetime, but they limit them with software. My iPad is perfectly functional, but I cannot update the operating system to get the latest applications. My Mac is a perfectly good machine, but it no longer receives operating system updates. The latest updates to my software require that I update macOS, and my Mac does not support the minimum operating system version required for my latest software, which I have paid for. So now both machines are useless, even though they are in perfect working condition. Also, buying a new Mac is expensive, and the hardware is not upgradable. Random access memory and solid-state drive pricing is very high. There are other issues as well. Now, I dislike Exploitation. Story 30. Former Razer fanboy. I went through 2 Death Adders and 2 of their keyboards in less than 4 years. That is way too expensive to not last that long. Story 31. Surprised I can't find it in the comments already. Maybe Reddit is trying to censor for damage control. Reddit announced plans to block paywall subscriptions. Everyone complained when they made third-party apps unusable. Sure, ads are necessary to pay for servers and maintenance. But is Reddit worth paying money for each individual subreddit? I won't be returning if that happens. For most people, Reddit is just a time killer during free hours. Do you honestly think they will pay for the privilege? That's unrealistic. There are many free activities to do in their free time, so good luck with that. Story 32. Roku. I had a cheap security camera fail after 32 days. Walmart would not accept a return because it was 2 days past the return window. Roku support continually ignored my requests for a return, even though the camera has a 1-year warranty. I know it is just a $20 device and I should move on, but being lied to by Roku support left a bad impression. I am buying Wise products from now on. Update August 12th. A delivery person brought a box from Roku containing a brand new camera. I somewhat take back the negative comments I made about their products. However, their customer service chat remains unsatisfactory. Story 33. Back when Blockbuster was around, I got tired of them always being out of the games I wanted to rent. Once, I thought I had finally found one. I brought it up to the counter, and they told me they had made a mistake. That one was out too. Even when the game I wanted was listed as in stock, it was actually out of stock. I never went back. Story 34. I worked for Lowe's Information Technology from 2018 to 2021. I still keep in contact with my main group. Lowe's decided to lay off all their local information technology staff this year and outsource the work to India. I now work in the home department. Story 35. I stopped shopping at Macy's online site when all the clothes I bought from different brands turned out to be out of stock. A fact they apparently discovered after I placed my order. They gave me an immediate refund, but my time and mental energy are valuable too. This had happened on a smaller scale with several of my prior Macy's orders, with 1 or 2 items out of stock in a 6 or 8 item order. While not ideal, I could live with that. I do not demand absolute perfection. Having all the items in my order be out of stock is a serious issue and means the company has a major problem with their stock software or processes. Searching through a website to find the exact clothing items I want, figure out the right size based on brand variations, and ensure they coordinate well takes time and is a chore. Why cannot Macy's update their website in real time to avoid selling items that are already out of stock? Until Macy's can assure me that the items on their website are actually in stock the vast majority of the time, I am done. Story 36. Square Enix and their poorly optimized personal computer ports combined with no customer support. Story 37. I canceled and cut up my United Airlines Mileage Plus credit card when. Story 38. I withdraw all support from any company that, even during the prototype or concept phase, considers or plans to lock hardware features behind subscription-based software for products I have already purchased. Logitech is the latest to pull this nonsense. Even though they never released the Forever Mouse, the fact that they were even considering it tells me everything I need to know about the direction the company is headed. Story 39. Hobby Lobby, the whole birth control controversy I could barely overlook, but I only continued to shop there for lower prices and because they had items other stores did not. Then the smuggling issue arose, and I have not been back since. The owners are unreasonable and should be in prison. Story 40. When they hired mercenaries to go after a YouTuber who was given leaked copies of the newest Magic: The Gathering cards, it was unacceptable. The attempted repeal of the open gaming license was bad enough. There was such backlash against that move that the company backed down. Diluting their intellectual properties is also bad. They have stripped all integrity for a quick profit, doing partnerships with other completely unrelated intellectual properties, Converse and Hot Pockets. But above all, I used to turn to Dungeons and Dragons because it was my space away from the bullies where I had power in the world. Now they are trying to give my refuge to those very bullies who will not appreciate it like I did, will get bored and throw it away. Then they will sell off the company for parts and my childhood will be gone. But I think the Pinkerton episode was the straw that broke the camel's back. I will never support Wizards of the Coast again. Story 41. Ashley Furniture. My wife paid $300 for a mattress pad that was so slick the sheets would not stay on it for a night. They refused to take it back. Their corporate office ended the call when I asked if they stand behind their products. We spent a lot of money at Ashley, but they will never see another penny from me. Story 42. The Ultimate Fighting Championship. Everything is political now. They bring out Donald Trump and his group led by Kid Rock. I just wanted to watch grown men compete in peace. Story 43. Wegmans. Their grandfather would be rolling in his grave if he saw what they have done to his stores. It used to be a reasonably priced grocery store with great customer service and a wide range of products. Now it feels like they are following the Walmart model, but with much higher prices and pushing the Wegmans brand to the exclusion of other brands. I grew up with these stores, but I am done with them. They are too expensive and lack customer service. Story 44. The last 4 out of 5 DoorDash orders I placed were messed up or canceled in a major way. It was no longer worth it to me. Story 45. Seeing former President Donald Trump do a commercial for Goya from the Resolute desk. I have not bought Goya since then, and I use at least a can of beans a week. Story 46. Elon Musk's immoral $48 billion paycheck kind of ruined the whole charade. Story 47. I agree with the Amazon and Starbucks people. I'll add LL Bean. They used to be someplace I was willing to pay a little extra for in exchange for better quality. Plus, they backed up their products so well it was my first stop for clothes. Then, the quality went down, prices got higher, and return policies changed from admittedly too loose to now seeming to argue the simplest of returns. This started before the pandemic, so they can't use that overused excuse. Story 48. I once loved Harley-Davidson. After buying one, the company treated its customers poorly. They did not honor their warranties. I would never spend another dollar on their subpar products. Story 49. Anything to do with Ford when my 2018 Lincoln MKZ engine failed after only driving 60,000 miles. What a terrible company. Story 50. When the chief executive officer of Kellogg's suggested that people with low income eat cereal for dinner. Story 51. Ubisoft lost my trust many times, but occasionally they released something I was interested in, and, at least for that title, I was back in. Then their chief executive officer said that gamers need to get used to the idea of not owning their games. No, sorry, I completely disagree with that. What's surprising is that I would have subscribed to Ubisoft Plus for a few months at a time if a game came out that interested me. I literally would have done what he wanted if he had not presented the plan so poorly and obviously. Story 52. Starbucks and union busting. I have not had a Starbucks Frappuccino in 3 years now. Story 53. Blizzard has had issues with sexual harassment. Even if they address those problems, I am done with them because of how poorly they have become. Story 54. The owner purchased one of the world's most used social media platforms and began displaying his bigotry. Story 55. Anything against labor unions. There are workers and there are owners. If you do not own the company and believe a labor union is not in your best interest, you are mistaken. Story 56. Critical Role. The quality and volume of their programming declined when their new monetization models began. Story 57. Costco. I still love everything about them except for one fact. Every product is packaged with a reprehensible amount of plastic waste. I felt irresponsible shopping there. Story 58. Elon Musk calling someone a pedophile for trying to save people's lives. Story 59. Green Mountain salsa used to come in real canning jars that used the actual canning lids. They changed the lids and the salsa. I like to reuse. Story 60. I worked for a custom t-shirt company for a while that I loved and really stood by. Then they suddenly shifted focus from being a company proud of its ability to stay afloat while taking care of everyone to prioritizing profits. The chief executive officer looked everyone in the eye and promised all our jobs were safe, saying they were just making adjustments to increase profits. A few months later, they shut down our main factory and another one we had out west, firing around 600 people at once. Then they promised that the last factory in Texas was safe and paid for many employees to relocate there. They promised no more reductions. A few months later, they announced they were outsourcing art as well as production, firing 200 artists. Then, less than a year later, they shut down the Texas factory, not only firing everyone but also displacing people who had moved for the job. I was a salesperson, and my success rate with orders dropped from 90% to 40%. Acceptable and 60% unusable, requiring reprints. It was humiliating. My customers were often overworked people who placed orders last minute, meaning there was little to no time to replace defective items. I could not see how this was making us more money, so I left, and I have not checked in since. I hate capitalism. Story 61. Command license literate sable apparatus frightened slap saw impolite automatic. Story 62. Buying an online communication company, then consistently tweeting racist and awful content while allowing chaos in right-wing propaganda to run amok. Story 63. I once liked Ubisoft. They have been declining for a while now, and for me, the final straw came when I saw the trailer for Shadows. I do not want to get into the whole "was he a samurai" controversy because it really does not matter. Ghosts of Tsushima has been out for a long time. It is almost exactly what the Assassin's Creed fans wanted from a game set in Japan. Yet, despite having a clear blueprint right in front of them, one they know will work because it has been successful, they went off doing something completely different. Then they charged $130 at launch for the full game. The base game is $70, and then it is $40 for the season pass. Unless that downloadable content is massive and basically redefines the game, it is not worth it. I would rather just keep my money. Story 64. I used to defend Tesla, say I wanted one, and say it was my dream car, all because I fed into the hype when I read about it in the oatmeal. Then Elon Musk became a public figure. Story 65. Bought a couple of cases from Cassetify before the price increased significantly. They blatantly copied Jerry Riggs' designs. Story 66. When they jumped on every social issue trend, it was obvious they were only doing it for public relations and did not actually care about the cause. Story 67. Cadbury's was really nice chocolate until they were bought out by Kraft Foods. Now it is just insipid brown vegetable fat blocks. Story 68. Never been a political person, but Donald Trump has been a particularly negative influence. When Yangling officially supported him, I stopped buying their brand. Before that, I liked that they were a cheaper, no-frills lager and would buy it often, so it is not like I did not enjoy the product. They could have also just not expressed support or aligned with any political party or opinion, as they are a beer brand. But they did, and in this instance, it was a bad enough endorsement that I stopped buying their products. Story 69. I used to love Disney products when I was younger. Over the years, I found out that they can be pretty shady, but the final straw for me was discovering that they do not properly pay their writers. I stopped consuming anything from them. Story 70. I used to be a diehard fan of Tesla because of what it represented: clean energy and pioneering against big oil and gas. However, now I see that it is not as special as I once thought. Story 71. When they abused their mailing list to send out an inappropriate email suggesting that we should use a promotional code to show support for Donald Trump. Story 72. There is a regional brand in the Northeast called Martin's Potato Rolls. I have loved their products since I discovered them in the 1980s. The rolls are fluffy and tasty enough to eat plain. Then they supported Doug Mastriano in the 2022 Pennsylvania governor's election. He is the candidate who asked for a Nazi salute in at least one of his rallies. When he lost by a large margin, he claimed the election was rigged or stolen. Because that is the Republican Party way these days. I boycotted them in the pre-election period but started buying them again afterward. More recently, I drove past their headquarters in Chambersburg. They now fly a Christian nationalist flag. Buying their products indirectly supports the people who want to replace the United States Constitution with a theocracy. That was the end for me. Story 73. There was a banana company that has a history of mass murder and slavery. Story 74. Supporting the Vladimir Putin regime by continuing to sell products in that region. Story 75. Had a car for less than a month when it overheated. Immediately called to get the car checked out, and the dealership where I bought it said it would be 2.5 weeks before they could see us. My spouse called around until they got a same-day appointment at another dealership, where they were treated extremely well. My spouse emailed the original dealership and the corporate headquarters of the car brand. No replies at all. My spouse will never buy from that dealership group or from that car brand again and advises against them. Our family had bought around 14 vehicles and likely influenced many more purchases by friends. That is over. I even like some of the models the car company is putting out, but I will never buy one. There are options. Story 76. I used to shop at Tractor Supply Company about once a week for various miscellaneous items I needed. Then they decided to signal support for conservative views by ending their diversity programs. Their decision actively harms minority groups and was entirely unnecessary. Reducing or eliminating these programs could have been done without a public announcement, but their choice to make a press release harms these communities. Now I drive past Tractor Supply and go to a local feed store 3 times as far away. I will not give my business back to a company that politicizes its operations. Story 77. I have always known the International Olympic Committee was a corrupt organization, yet I continued to enjoy the Olympics every time. Then Tokyo was forced to proceed with 0 attendance. They could have just postponed it to 2022. Then the following ones could have stayed scheduled or been postponed as well, but no. There is too much money tied up in these games, and Japan had to take the hit. Although I genuinely enjoyed watching the games, my interest has fallen to 0. Story 78. Stopped accepting cash. Beer and credit cards are a bad combination for many reasons. Story 79. Linus Media Group is damaging the reputation of a small company by portraying their prototype as a horrible product through incorrect use. They then auctioned the company's only prototype, which they had promised to return. The buyers of the prototype were competitors of the small business. Story 80. Nestle pumped out water during the severe drought in California in 2021. With a collection of approximately 2,000 brands worldwide, it is very hard to avoid them. Nestle spun off that water business and relocated it from California. Story 81. Probably the Jason Allison trade. Mild interest when they drafted Joe Thornton, but then Harry and company screwed that one up too. Story 82. I bought an LG Beauty. I will never buy another LG product. Story 83. Having a terrible customer service experience where they clearly did not care about fixing the issue and made me feel like I was just a number. Story 84. In Canada, we had Home Depot and a few alternatives that were nowhere near as good. Then Lowe's came in. They were great compared to Home Depot. Better selection, more knowledgeable staff, and so on. I even set up a contractor account. After a few years, they started declining. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I needed a copper pipe fitting that usually costs a couple of dollars, but they wanted $14 for it. I asked the employee if this was a mistake, and he looked it up and said no, it was the correct price. So I stopped going there if they were going to price gouge like that. Then they were bought by a private equity company and rebranded as Rona. Now they are even worse. If you buy something at a particular store, you may only be able to return it at that store. So I decided to stop supporting them. Life is too short. Story 85. They clearly and negligently allowed a highly skilled swimmer to drown in full view of spectators and on camera. They then made the remaining athletes decide whether to continue the competition instead of immediately canceling or postponing it while they evaluated the design of the competition from a safety perspective. Story 86. Tesla. Then I saw the garbage coming from Elon Musk's mouth. Enough said. Story 87. A local barbecue restaurant. The owner started a lot of false drama with coronavirus regulations. Then she was at the January 6th rally. Story 88. Disney. My favorite story of all time is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. They were making a series on Disney Plus that was a lot closer to the book. The 1954 movie had to leave out almost 80% of the original book due to time and budget constraints. They are just about finished with the series and they canceled it without explanation. Story 89. T-Mobile. The dropped calls were getting out of hand. I used to support their vision and brand, but not anymore. Story 90. Spotify is paying a large amount of money to an anti-vaccine advocate for exclusivity during a pandemic. I still receive these emails from them occasionally, but I do not support it. Story 91. Trader Joe's said we do not need a labor board. Amazon said the same. No more Trader Joe's, and I am trying to avoid Amazon if I can, although they have made that hard. Story 92. Stealing and illegally trading historical artifacts. Story 93. Annoying persistent advertisements. If I want your product or service, I will find you. However, if you annoy me, I will boycott you forever. Story 94. When they started releasing new products every other week, it felt like they just wanted more money instead of focusing on creating something truly great. Story 95. Goya. However, it was more of a revelation that the owner was disagreeable after trying to ingratiate himself with Donald Trump. Story 96. I found out that the brand that makes organic cotton pads I was using for a while supports stripping the constitutional right to bodily autonomy from American women. Story 97. First, I came to Twitter for a media project, which was lots of fun. After that ended, I saw more and more politics and heavy content. The final straw, however, was a billionaire buying it. I was not happy with him gaining so much power, and then he started to behave badly and make strange decisions. I left before the name change. This was just wrong, and it only went further downhill from there. Story 98. Tesla required workers to come in during COVID, breaking the law, and Musk said to arrest him. I never liked Elon Musk because he seems cold and calculated, and someone like that will always use others to meet their own ends. However, I liked what he was doing in bringing focus to electric cars and space travel. Story 99. Elon Musk is a narcissistic mess. He built his entire empire on the support of progressives who were concerned about the climate, then betrayed them when they expected him to pay his fair share in taxes. Now he supports Donald Trump, who openly attacks alternative energy and climate science. He also attacks his own transgender child. I will not give another dime. Story 100. I still will not touch Chick-fil-A's chicken. I used to like their chicken. Story 101. A local brewery held a gathering for supporters of an insurrectionist fascist less than a month after January 6th. Story 102. Charging me $1.25 for a small cup of hot sauce when I spent $30 on food, and they do not include hot sauce with the order. Story 103. Duolingo is removing the ability to practice in order to earn hearts. You can no longer call it free. It is now a free trial. Story 104. I was a big fan of Disney. The last time I went to Disneyland, it was impossible to get on any rides. Then Disney Media mishandled Star Wars and I was done. I do not buy anything Disney related. I do not watch any movies, wear any clothing, or watch television. I am done. Story 105. Eddie Bauer. I was a loyal customer for over 10 years. Then an order went missing. They said it was delivered, but I never received it. Their customer service gave me the runaround for almost 3 weeks before they finally issued a refund. The quality of their clothes also declined, so it was not really a loss, but they have probably lost thousands of dollars I have spent with their competitors since then. Story 106. Miel, Carol's daughter, Shea Moisture. Any black-owned hair care brands that are acquired by non-black companies often change their formulas and become drastically worse. Story 107. Not really a final straw, but I would not even buy a drink from Chick-fil-A if I were on the verge of dying of dehydration. Forget Chick-fil-A. Story 108. Several brands refused to withdraw from Russia after 2022. Companies should treat their Russia operations as total write-offs. Pepsi, Nestle, Mondelez, Procter & Gamble, Echo, Makita, Barilla, the list goes on. Story 109. I quit Netflix because Rebel Moon was just so terrible. Story 110. I used to love J. Crew. Then I read a New York Times article about how immigrant children in detention were being used as child labor, and I could not support those companies anymore. It stopped me from buying products from Cheetos, Whole Foods, and Target as well. Many companies were involved in exploiting these children. Story 111. I did not necessarily like them, but Wizards of the Coast sending the Pinkertons after somebody following their own mistake pushed me to never give them money again. Story 112. Wizards of the Coast. I was a Magic the Gathering collector for 20 years, and the way they handled Magic's 30th anniversary confirmed for me that they see their players as open wallets and nothing more. They reprinted the Power 9 in $999 randomized booster packs that were loaded with extra lands and tokens, which were functionally proxies and illegal to play with. This was supposedly so people who couldn't enjoy original alpha and beta cards could have a chance. Meanwhile, Pokémon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Reprint their original sets at normal booster prices for everyone to enjoy. Not to mention how poorly the in-person Magic 30 events were handled. It was a disaster. They put in minimal effort and charged hundreds of dollars for tickets. On top of the artificial intelligence art controversy, Dungeons & Dragons open gaming license, Pinkertons, failure to support local game stores, declining print quality, increasing prices, constant flood of new products, secret lairs, card variant overload, low-effort serialization, and accelerating power creep through direct-to-modern and Commander products. Story 113. Fitbit has a dedicated user with many devices and replacements since their first tracker. They recently removed the desktop interface, and I rarely use it. When my watch dies, so will Fitbit. Story 114. Elon's behavior starting in late 2018, with the final straw being his unironical use of the phrase woke mind virus. Story 115. Realizing they were using dishonest marketing tactics, such as misleading advertisements or hidden fees, made me feel taken advantage of. Story 116. In-N-Out mandated employees not to wear face masks. I will not support that. Story 117. Tesla. The chief executive officer is becoming difficult to work with. I advised a few people against buying its cars because I strongly disagree with him. Story 118. Hobby Lobby believes businesses should stay out of politics and religion. Story 119. The man who owns most of Home Depot was funding lawsuits to stop student loan debt forgiveness and other right-wing political actions. This is similar to Hobby Lobby, even though I hardly ever shop there. Story 120. The Los Angeles Dodgers cut pitcher Trevor Bauer from the team after he repeatedly proved his innocence against claims of sexual misconduct. Story 121. As a small farmer, I have decided to no longer spend money at Tractor Supply Company. Their reversal on diversity, equity, and inclusion disgusts me. Story 122. Razer mouse stopped left-clicking after a year. Headphones required an extra purchase for 5.1 surround sound, and then a Namo set of speakers stopped working after a year. Their mousepad held up well though. Story 123. Finding out about the terrible working conditions experienced by the people who poured so much love and passion into something I used to enjoy is distressing. Incredibly talented individuals are underpaid and overworked to the point of mental and emotional deterioration. This is not something I want to support. If I can avoid that, I will. Story 124. Pokémon removing the National Pokédex and handling it poorly. Story 125. Blizzard has faced numerous issues related to sexism and sexual harassment. Additionally, they have continued to deteriorate the quality of their games. Story 126. Nike, Bud Light, all fast food except In-N-Out from this local Californian. Story 127. General Motors lacks reliability, and does not stand behind their products. It seems common for a car to fall apart after a few years. I will not buy a new one or take advantage of any discounts. Never again. Story 128. Target is putting a limit on self-checkout. I went through the cashier line once, and they moved at a snail's pace and did not even respond when I said hello. I am not going through that just to buy my 12 items. Story 129. Not a big deal, but I have always liked a certain clothing brand. They focused on being environmentally friendly and using recycled materials. Once, I had the opportunity to work for them as a high school student, and I spent 2 days in their store. While I was folding clothes, a new collection arrived, and each item was wrapped in plastic, which was later removed and thrown in the trash. The clothes were also thrown onto the floor before being picked up and placed on racks. They were simply pretending to be environmentally friendly, and on top of that, they were selling dirty clothes. I never bought anything else from them and quit that day. Story 130. Musk and Tesla. I had fully planned on buying a Model 3 once funds were secured. Then he had to talk about the Thai person and all the other issues. Now I am here supporting Comcast because I would rather support a problematic company like that than give a single cent to Starlink. Story 131. Expedia's website negatively affected my vacation because, for some reason, it changes your return date when you adjust your departure date without warning. I spent around 3 hours on the phone with no solution other than being asked to pay an additional $3,000. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.